Back again already? Didn't Jessica just bring this in yesterday? I stared at Tony, our mechanic, not understanding what he was saying. I had just pulled into the auto shop with my wife's car, a silver Honda Accord that had been making a weird rattling noise. Jessica was at work, so I'd offered to take care of it for her. What do you mean? I asked. She didn't mention bringing the car in. Tony looked at his computer screen, then back caught me, his expression confused. Yeah, she was here yesterday afternoon around 2 p.m. We did a full inspection and tire rotation. She didn't tell you. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. No, she didn't. Tony pulled up the service record and showed me, sure enough, Jessica's car had been serviced the day before. And as I looked at the history, I saw something that made my blood run cold. She'd been bringing the car in every few weeks for the past several months. Small services, inspections, things that didn't really need to be done that frequently. That's a lot of visits, I said slowly. Yeah, Tony agreed. I actually mentioned to her last time that she didn't need to come in so often, but she said she wanted to keep the car in perfect condition. He paused. Hey, man, is everything okay? I didn't answer because I was staring at another number on the service record, the mileage. In just the past 3 months, Jessica's car had accumulated over 8,000 miles. That couldn't be right. She worked from home 3 days a week and only drove to the gym and occasionally to see friends. There was no way she was putting that many miles on her car. Tony, I said slowly, can you print out the service history for the past year? My name's Chris, and until that moment at the auto shop, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Jessica and I had been together for 6 years, married we'd met through mutual friends, dated for 2 years, and got married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by everyone we loved. Jessica worked in marketing for a tech company, mostly remote, but with occasional office days. I worked in finance, regular 9 to 5 hours. We had a nice house in the suburbs, 2 cats, and plans to start trying for kids soon. From the outside, we were the picture of a successful young couple. And from the inside, I'd thought we were happy too. We had date nights every Friday, spent weekends hiking or trying new restaurants, and talked about our future together. Jessica was affectionate, supportive, and seemed genuinely content with our life. Sure, she'd been a bit distant lately, more time at the gym, more girls' nights, more time on her phone. But I'd chalked it up to work stress. Her company was going through a reorganization, and I figured she was just dealing with that pressure. I trusted her completely. The thought that she might be cheating had never even crossed my mind. Why would it? We were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. Sitting in my car in the parking lot of Tony's auto shop, I stared at the service records he'd printed for me. The numbers told a story I didn't want to believe. In the past year, Jessica's car had accumulated nearly 35,000 miles. For context, my car, which I drove to work every day, to run errands, to visit my parents an hour away, had only accumulated about 12,000 miles in the same time period. Where was she going? I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. Jessica's office was 15 miles from our house. On the 2 days a week she went in, that was 60 miles total. The gym was 3 miles away, maybe 200 miles a month if she went 5 times a week, which she claimed to. Add in some errands, occasional dinners with friends, and there was no mathematical way to account for 35,000 miles. I thought about her schedule. She left for the gym around 10 a.m. most mornings and came back around noon. She'd grab lunch, work from home in the afternoon, and we'd have dinner together in the evening. Some nights she'd have girls' night and would be out until 10 or 11. Weekends, she'd sometimes run errands or visit her sister who lived about 30 miles away. None of this added up to 35,000 miles. I sat there for probably 20 minutes, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe she was driving clients around for work, but she worked in marketing, not sales. Maybe she'd been taking long drives to clear her head, but she'd never mentioned anything like that. Maybe the odometer was broken, but Tony would have noticed that during his inspections. Or maybe, and this thought made me feel sick, she was lying about where she was going and what she was doing. I didn't want to be that husband, the suspicious, controlling type who didn't trust his wife. But I also couldn't ignore what I'd discovered. The excessive mileage, the frequent unexplained visits to the mechanic, the time she supposedly spent at the gym or with friends. I needed to know the truth. That evening, I acted normal. When Jessica came home from the office around 6, I kissed her hello and asked about her day. She talked about a meeting with her team, a project deadline, coming up, normal work stuff. She didn't mention anything unusual. How was your day? She asked, starting to prepare dinner. Fine, I said. Pretty standard. Oh, I took your car to Tony's for that rattling noise. I watched her face carefully. There was a flicker of something surprise, concern, but it passed quickly. Oh, thanks, honey, she said casually. What did he say? Just needed a minor adjustment. Should be fine now. I paused. He mentioned you'd been in yesterday, too. Oh, yeah, she said without missing a beat. I thought I heard a weird sound, so I wanted him to check it out. Turned out to be nothing. She was lying. Tony had said she'd come in for a scheduled tire rotation, not because of a noise. It was a small lie, but it was definitely a lie. That's good, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Better safe than sorry. We had dinner, watched some TV, went to bed. Jessica fell asleep quickly, her head on my shoulder like always. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. The next morning, after Jessica left for her gym session, I went to an electronics store and bought a small GPS tracker. The kind you can hide in a car and monitor from your phone. It felt wrong, invasive, like I was violating her privacy. But she was lying to me. I knew that now. And I needed to know what she was hiding. I installed the tracker in her car that afternoon, hidden in a magnetic case under the rear bumper where she'd never find it. Then I downloaded the tracking app on my phone and waited. The app would show me her location in real time, plus keep a history of everywhere she'd been. It felt like I was crossing a line, becoming someone I didn't want to be. But the alternative was living with this gnawing suspicion, this knowledge that something was very wrong but not knowing what. I'm heading to the gym. Jessica called out the next morning around 10 a.m., her gym bag over her shoulder. Have a good workout? I called back, my heart pounding. As soon as she left, I opened the tracking app. I watched the blue dot representing her car move through our neighborhood onto the main road, and then ... right past the gym. She kept driving. I watched as she drove 15 minutes across town to a neighborhood I didn't recognize. The blue dot finally stopped at an address I'd never heard of. She stayed there for 2 hours. When she came home around noon, she was in her gym clothes, slightly sweaty, looking like she'd just worked out. Good workout? I asked. Yep, really good, she said with a smile. I'm going to grab a shower. I looked at my phone. The GPS showed her car had never been anywhere near the gym. Over the next week, I tracked Jessica's movements obsessively. A pattern emerged that made me feel physically ill. On gym days, she'd drive to the same address across town, a luxury apartment complex called Riverside Heights. She'd stay for 2 to 3 hours, then come home in her gym clothes, claiming she'd had a great workout. On girls' night evenings, she'd sometimes go to restaurants where I could verify her friends were actually there, but other times, she'd go straight to that same apartment complex and stay until 10 or 11 at night. On the days she claimed to be at the office, she'd sometimes actually go to her office building, but other days, she'd drive to that apartment complex instead, staying there for 4 or 5 hours. The weekends, when she said she was visiting her sister, the GPS showed her going to completely different locations, nice hotels, restaurants in other towns, once even a bed and breakfast about 60 miles away. My wife was living a double life, and she'd been doing it for months, maybe longer. I did some research on the apartment complex. Riverside Heights was an upscale building with 1 and 2 bedroom units. The rent was expensive, easily $2,500, $3,000 a month. Who lived there? Who was she seeing? I could have confronted her right then, could have shown her the GPS tracking data and demanded answers. But something made me wait. I needed to see with my own eyes. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. The following Tuesday, Jessica announced she was going to the gym. I told her I had a work call and would be in my home office all morning. As soon as she left, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I kept a safe distance, watching her silver Accord navigate through traffic. Just like the GPS had shown, she drove right past the gym and continued across town to Riverside Heights. I parked across the street, partially hidden behind a delivery truck, and watched. Jessica parked in the visitor lot, checked her appearance in the mirror, and walked into the building. She didn't look around, didn't seem nervous. She walked in like she belonged there. I waited. 20 minutes later, the door of the building opened and a man came out. He was tall, probably in his 30s, wearing business casual clothes. He walked to the parking lot, got in a BMW, and drove away. Could that be him? The man my wife was seeing? I stayed in my car for the next 2 hours, waiting, watching, feeling like a private detective in some noir film. Finally, Jessica emerged. She was wearing her gym clothes now, her hair in a ponytail, looking exactly like someone who just finished working out. She got in her car and drove home. I waited a few minutes, then drove home from a different direction, making sure to arrive after she did. When I walked in, she was in the shower. Her gym bag was in the hallway, her sneakers by the door. Everything looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like. But I knew the truth now. Couldn't let it go. I needed to know who this man was, how long this had been going on, how serious it was. I started checking our credit card statements more carefully. There were charges I'd never noticed before, restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never stayed at, florists, gift shops. Jessica handled most of our finances, and I'd never questioned her. Now I realized she'd been hiding expenses, probably using cash for a lot of things, being careful to make sure I wouldn't notice unusual charges. But she'd slipped up a few times. There was a charge for a romantic dinner at an expensive steakhouse on a night she'd told me she was having girls' night. There was a hotel charge from 2 months ago when she'd said she was visiting her sister, but the hotel was in the opposite direction from where her sister lived. I felt like an idiot. How long had this been going on? How had I not seen it? I went back to the apartment complex one more time, this time walking into the lobby like I belonged there. There was a directory of residents, and I scanned the names, looking for, I didn't know what, some clue. Then I saw a name that made my stomach drop. James Mitchell, Uniquatre Sensi Sech. James Mitchell, I knew that name. He worked for the same company as Jessica. She'd mentioned him before, her team lead, the guy who'd been promoted to senior director last year. She'd said he was married with 2 kids, but apparently he also had an apartment at Riverside Heights. An apartment my wife visited multiple times a week. I couldn't wait anymore. That evening, when Jessica came home from work, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open and printed GPS tracking reports spread out in front of me. "We need to talk," I said. She looked at the papers on the table, and her face went pale. "Chris, what is all this?" "Sit down, Jessica," she said slowly, her eyes on the printed maps and location logs. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how much I knew, what story she could tell. "I know about James Mitchell," I said. "I know about Riverside Heights. I know you haven't been going to the gym or seeing your friends or visiting your sister. I know you've been lying to me for months." She opened her mouth, closed it, then started to cry. "Chris, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. How long?" I asked. "About 8 months," she whispered. 8 months. 2/3 of a year. While I'd been thinking about starting a family with her, planning our future, she'd been having an affair with her boss. "Is he married?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He's separated from his wife. They're getting divorced. The apartment is temporary while they sort everything out." "And you believed him?" She looked up at me, confused. "Jessica, he's still married. He hasn't filed for divorce." I checked. "He lives with his wife and kids in a house about 10 miles from here. The apartment is where he brings you, so you won't be at his real home." The look on her face told me she hadn't known this. She'd believed his lies just like I'd believed hers. "He told me they were separated," she said weakly. "He said the divorce was in progress. He lied to you, just like he lied to me." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, "How did you find out?" "The mechanic," I said. "I took your car in for service, and Tony mentioned you'd been there the day before. You'd never mentioned it. Then I saw your mileage. 35,000 miles in 1 year." "Jessica, where did you think I'd believe you were going?" She put her head in her hands. "I didn't think you'd notice. You never checked the car before. I installed a GPS tracker. I admitted I've been monitoring your location for the past 2 weeks. I know everywhere you've been, every lie you've told. That's ... double quotes." She started to say something about invasion of privacy, but stopped herself. She had no moral high ground here. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you do this? Was I not enough? Were you unhappy?" "No," she said quickly. "It wasn't about you. You're a wonderful husband. I do love you, Chris. Just not enough to be faithful." She flinched. It started as just ... attraction. James and I worked together closely on projects. We'd have long meetings, late nights at the office. We connected. Then one night, after a work event, we kissed. And it just spiraled from there. 8 months isn't a spiral, I said. 8 months is a choice you made every single day. Over the next few days, as we decided what to do about our marriage, more truth came out. Jessica finally told me everything. Maybe because she knew I could verify it all now with the GPS tracker. James Mitchell was indeed still married, living with his wife and 2 children. He'd told Jessica he was getting divorced. that he was only staying in the house until they could sort out custody and financial arrangements. He'd rented the apartment, he claimed, to have space away from the toxic family home. It was all lies. I did some digging and found out James had pulled this same scam before. 3 years ago, he'd had an affair with another woman from his company, told her the same story about being separated and getting divorced. When that woman had gotten tired of being hidden and had demanded he leave his wife, he'd ended the affair and convinced his wife it had just been a friendship that the crazy woman had misinterpreted. Jessica was just his latest victim, and she'd been too caught up in the excitement and attention to see the obvious red flags. He made me feel special, Jessica said. He'd text me throughout the day, take me to nice places, tell me I was amazing. You and I had gotten so ... routine. We were comfortable, but there wasn't excitement anymore. So you decided to destroy our marriage for excitement? I asked. I didn't think of it that way, she said. I thought I could have both. The stability with you and the excitement with James. I thought what you didn't know wouldn't hurt you, but you had to know I'd find out eventually. I didn't think that far ahead. She admitted. I was just living in the moment, enjoying the attention. Jessica wanted to try to save our marriage. She ended things with James immediately, even switched to a different department at work to avoid seeing him. She suggested marriage counseling, promised she'd be completely transparent from now on, swore it would never happen again, but I couldn't do it. The trust was gone. Every time she left the house, I'd wonder where she was really going. Every text message, every phone call, every "I'm working late" would make me suspicious. I couldn't live like that, and it wasn't fair to either of us. I don't hate you, I told her, but I can't be married to you anymore. You lied to me every day for 8 months. You looked me in the eye and told me you were going to the gym, and then you drove to your lover's apartment. You came home and asked me about my day like everything was normal while you were living a completely separate life. I can't get past that, she cried, apologized, begged for another chance. But my decision was made. The divorce was relatively simple. We didn't have kids, and we agreed to split our assets fairly. I kept the house. She moved into an apartment. We divided our savings and retirement accounts. It was all very civil and adult, which somehow made it sadder. The story about how I found out became something people talked about. Did you hear about Chris? His mechanic exposed his wife's affair. It was almost comical, the way a routine oil change had unraveled her entire deception. Tony, the mechanic, felt terrible. Man, I'm so sorry, he said when I brought my car in for service a few months later. I didn't mean to blow up your marriage. You didn't blow up my marriage, I told him. Jessica did that. You just showed me the truth. I'm grateful, actually. Better to know than to keep living a lie. I heard through mutual friends that Jessica and James's affair didn't survive once. It wasn't forbidden anymore. Without the excitement of sneaking around, they apparently realized they didn't actually have that much in common. James never left his wife, and Jessica eventually moved to a different city for a new job. As for me, I learned some hard lessons. I learned that trust is fragile and that people can lie more easily than you'd think. I learned that routine and comfort in a marriage isn't a bad thing. It's actually a sign of stability and maturity. And I learned that sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected places. It's been about 1.5 years since that day at Tony's auto shop. I'm in a better place now. I sold the house, too many memories, and bought a condo closer to downtown. I focused on my career and got a promotion. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I started dating again, carefully and with much more awareness. I'm more cautious now, maybe even a bit cynical. When someone tells me they're going somewhere, I find myself wondering if they're telling the truth. When I'm in a relationship and she's late coming home or vague about her plans, I feel that familiar anxiety creeping in. I'm working on that with a therapist, learning to trust again without being paranoid, learning to recognize the difference between healthy skepticism and unhealthy suspicion. It's a process. The GPS tracker is still in my drawer. I haven't used it again, and I hope I never need to. But it's there, a reminder of what I learned. Trust, but verify, and pay attention to the details that don't add up. This experience taught me several things. First, people who are cheating often slip up in small ways. The excessive mileage, the frequent mechanic visits, the vague answers about her schedule. These were all signs I could have caught earlier if I'd been paying attention. Second, when you have a gut feeling that something's wrong, you're probably right. I'd felt Jessica pulling away, sensed something was off, but I dismissed my intuition as paranoia or insecurity. Third, sometimes the truth comes from unlikely sources. A confused mechanic, a wrong number. A misdirected email, infidelity, often gets exposed to accident rather than investigation. And finally, Trust is everything in a relationship. Once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. I don't regret ending my marriage with Jessica, even though I loved her. A relationship without trust isn't really a relationship at all. So, here's my question for all of you. Would you have installed the GPS tracker, or do you think that crosses a line into controlling behavior? And at what point does healthy vigilance become unhealthy paranoia? Because I still wrestle with whether what I did was justified or whether I should have just confronted Jessica the moment I suspected something. Let me know in the comments what you think.